Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Warrant Officer Nikolai Rolfe. Today, we commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Buna, Gona. The beachhead battles of Buna, Gona, and Senananda were the final slog in the long campaign to defeat the Japanese in Papua. The overland attack towards Port Moresby had begun in July 1942, when Japanese forces established beachheads at Buna, Gona, and Senananda, three villages along a 25-kilometre stretch of the north coast of Papua. By mid-September, the Japanese had fought their way along the Kokoda Trail, and it is said could see the lights of Port Moresby. But they had outrun their supply line and were soon ordered to withdraw because of losses suffered elsewhere. Pursued by elements of the 7th and 6th Divisions, the Japanese dug in along the north coast, determined to hold the beachheads at all costs. On the 16th of November, Australian troops crossed the Kamarski River, about 65 kilometres from the beachheads. The following battles took place during the tropical wet season in one of the most malarial regions in the world, amidst waterlogged swamps, dense jungle, and 2-metre tall grass, facing an enemy that was skillful, well-prepared, and resolute. The difficult conditions favoured the Japanese force, which had developed a strong network of well-concealed defences. For 2 bloody months, the Australians and Americans threw themselves against the defenders, only dislodging them after a fight that had many veterans considered their toughest of the war. Allied air power deterred the Japanese from reinforcing and resupplying the beachheads, and towards the end of the battle, some defenders were withdrawn by sea or escaped overland. But the remaining garrison fought to the death, almost to the man. Today we remember the Battle of Buna, Gona. We pay our respects to the men and women commemorated here on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who returned home. This evening, we are honoured to acknowledge the members of the Australian War Memorial's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Advisory Group, the delegation representing the Warrant Officer Leadership and Management course of HMAS Penguin, the visiting International Navy Fellows from the Sea Power Centre, and Mr. Conrad Adenauer Stifling and the accompanying delegation. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Club Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Kiewa Valley Primary School from Victoria. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catapult party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Catapult party, attention! Catapult party, present! Out!
Australians, oh let us rejoice, for we are one and free. With golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Catapult party, shoulder! Up! Catapult party, shoulder! Up!
Thank you. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Gunner John Dugald Alexander McDonald. John McDonald was born on the 20th of July 1910 in Maclean, New South Wales, the youngest child and only son of Roderick and Jane McDonald. He grew up in the Northern Rivers district with his three elder sisters, Mary, Jean and Agnes. John received his early education in Maclean before attending Grafton High School. He later studied education at Armidale College and became a school teacher. After his first teaching appointment in the Sydney suburb of Lewisham, he began to teach in the country, first at Dorrigo, then at Drake and Tungelbung. By the outbreak of the Second World War, he had returned to Maclean, where he was on the staff of the Maclean District Rural School. Records also indicate that he'd fathered a son named Dugald, born in 1930. John McDonald enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force on the 6th of July 1940 and was initially allotted to the reserve depot for artillery. In mid-September, he was taken on strength of the 2nd Anti-Aircraft Training Battery at Holsworthy before joining the 1st Field Training Regiment at Narrowland in January of 1941. After a brief short period of leave, on the 27th of June, he embarked at Sydney as a reinforcement for the 2nd 5th Field Regiment. The 2nd 5th had been formed in May 1940 in Sydney. In October, it was sent to the Middle East and was stationed in Palestine and Egypt. Equipped with 25-pounder field guns, in June 1941, the regiment was deployed to the Syria-Lebanon campaign, fighting against Vichy French forces. Gunner John McDonald joined his unit on the 9th of September, by which time the campaign had been won and fighting had ceased. The men remained in Syria for the rest of 1941, but the Japanese attack on Malaya and Pearl Harbor saw many Australian troops return from the Middle East to face the new threat. The 2nd 5th arrived in Australia at the end of March 1942. McDonald then had a short period of leave to visit his parents before the regiment concentrated in Queensland along with other units of the 7th Division. In August 1942, the regiment's 1st Battery, the 9th, deployed to Milne Bay in support of the 18th Brigade as Japanese forces advanced along the Kokoda Trail towards Port Moresby. The remainder of the regiment arrived in Papua in October. By this time, Japanese forces had been pushed back from Kokoda and had taken up strong defensive positions on Papua's north coast around Sanananda, Gona and Buna. Australian and American troops moved to attack Buna, and in mid-November, with the support of John's 55th Battery. On the 16th of November, the battery's guns, equipment and men were being transported by luggers along the coast when they were attacked by Japanese aircraft. It was a devastating strike, and all the small vessels were lost. Several men were killed. Among them was Gunner John McDonald. A few weeks later, John's parents received a letter from one of their son's comrades, Gunner Arnold Price, who explained what had happened. Jack's loss will be deeply felt in the troop because of his sterling qualities. His even temperament, his willingness, and his general behaviour and deportment endeared him to all. He was known to us as a little digger, small in stature, certainly, but one of great ambition and high ideals. John's body was unable to be recovered. Today, he's commemorated on the Lae Memorial in Lae, Papua New Guinea. He was 32 years old. His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Gunner John Dugald Alexander McDonald, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Catapult party, present! Off! party, shoulders up.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Catapult party, one, come. Catapult party, queen, march.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorials Development Project. And we wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.